First of all, in alphabetical order, I'm glad to welcome the guy that pays for my bills, Lukas Gadowski from Team Europe, and he will introduce himself.
Hallo, Test. Heureka! But a great idea is worth nothing without great execution. And great execution is in vain if applied to a poor idea. So, together with you, Team Europe wants to combine great ideas with great execution. And together with you, we executed one great idea to make the globe a more entrepreneurial place and to foster freedom, progress, and self-fulfillment. And together with you, Team Europe builds 2 to 3 new internet companies every year. So, it's Team Europe. Second, directly from Great Britain and already being part of our speed pitching, Mr. Stefan Glenzer from Passion Capital.
Thanks, guys. So, Passion Capital, I think I have rarely heard another word more often than passion today, and that's exactly the reason why we named ourselves Passion Capital. I actually think we fundamentally think it comes all down to the passion of the entrepreneurs and the executional ability of the guys. I actually used to be a DJ 15 years of my life. That was my second best job ever. For those who are interested, my best job ever was a sun lotion tester in Kenya. That was by far my most and best entrepreneurial experience. Other than that, I started in my lifetime probably 7 or 8 companies, pre-digital. It took 7 years to come up with the first good idea. That was Ricardo Online Auction, changed my life. I moved to London and now have teamed up with the 2 best partners I could possibly find. Eileen used to be 10 years in the Valley, computer background, and then head of product, employee number 3 at Skype. And Robert is the guy I sold 12 years ago Ricardo to, and it's actually always great if you team up once you have met on the opposite side of the table. Other than that, check out passioncapital.com. We, in the last 12 months, backed 20 entrepreneurs. So we are only doing seed investments, even though we have a $60 million fund, but we are really focusing, concentrating on backing kick-ass entrepreneurs out of Europe. Thank you.
Okay, now I need someone's help. I always tend to forget the hymn of the A-team. Is anyone able to whistle it? Anyone? Okay, because the next guy coming on stage is Mr. Florian B.A. Berekos Heinemann.
Thanks for the introduction. Florian, managing director and co-founder of Project A. We just started as an incubator, or as we like to see ourselves, as a company builder. We very much believe in the combination of strong entrepreneurs who really have the drive and the passion for what they do, together with experts and competence-based team, and that is what we try to provide, providing fund for the initial seed funding that a company needs, plus a team of very skilled experts where we believe that they're among the best in the field. There is marketing, CRM, BI, product development, IT, and HR organization building, and we very strongly believe in combining passionate entrepreneurs with these experts in order to build great companies. And we're very much open not only to copycat ideas, but we at least envisage whether that will happen or not will basically show the next 12 to 18 months. But we very much envisage that also the more creative guys, the more innovative guys will find their spot in our platform, and we would very much welcome those people in our incubator if they're interested.
I'm really glad that he came, although Gründerszene wrote about his company repeatedly quite hard. Please welcome, sorry? Please welcome Mr. Alexander Kuttlich from Rocket Internet.
My name is Alexander, I'm managing director of Rocket Internet. We are also a company builder. Some love us, some don't. I think what has changed since, I would say, 3/4 of a year, that we've become kind of a more global incubator. We have launched companies in 43 markets. We have offices in 25 markets, and we are currently on a pace of launching almost one company per week. And most of them luckily work out fine. What has changed, apart from the geographical thing, is that we have started doing more things which are a bit beyond our original core. Original core meaning transaction-based B2C models. We have now gone into more B2B models like payment and also mobile-only things. Thanks.
Last but not least, there's one person missing. I was allowed to sleep on his couch during the Mexico 2007, I think. By now he lives in London. Please welcome Philip Muring from SeedCamp.
Those were the days back in Cologne. So yeah, I'm Philip. I work at SeedCamp. We're an accelerator program. We call ourselves the premier platform for first-time entrepreneurs to get access to network, capital, and mentorship. And what we do is we find companies throughout Europe through an events model, invite them to spend a day with us and some of the best company builders, investors, and entrepreneurs. And then we pick from those 200 companies that we see over the course of the year, about 20 per year. That means 2 or 3 each month. And we help them build their Series A. We help them find a kick-ass advisory board from our about 1,500 active mentors throughout the world. And then those that stay with us, we also organize a really cool event called SeedCamp Week in London once a year, and an even better event, which is the SeedCamp US trip, which is a 4-week roadshow through the US with about 20 companies, 35 entrepreneurs this year. And all of this results again in access to mentors and access to capital and access to a network for those companies.
Guys, it's a pleasure to have you all here. I really feel deeply honored to have you on stage, even though I make jokes from time to time. As you all can see, I prepared dozens of questions, and I think there's millions of things that we can ask you. But the very first thing I always tend to ask myself is, do you like each other? Lukas, do you like Rocket Internet?
I think we should demonstrate.
So the reality is, I think we know each other since '97. We know each other since 2001. In the end, whether you're a company builder, whether you're an incubator, whether you're a proper investor accelerator program, it's all about shaping up an ecosystem. And that's what's so great for me, being German, living since 12 years in London now, to see for the first time we have a proper ecosystem here in Germany. And it is down to the incubators and to the company builders.
Maybe before we start, let's do some definitions. I mean, some of you spoke of yourself as incubators, some others of company builder, again others speak of accelerators. Philip, you're probably one of the international guys. What do you see as a difference between incubator, company builder, and accelerator?
That's a tough one. It's not a tough one, it's an easy one for me to say, but actually probably everyone has their own view on this. As an accelerator, we see ourselves as an opportunity to give entrepreneurs with a really good idea, who are based probably in a place in Europe where they can't find access to those kinds of people. Even when they're based in Berlin or in London, they might not get the type of access and the kind of access that we give these entrepreneurs. So we really try and give the rocket fuel to those kinds of entrepreneurs. And I think a company builder, I want you guys to correct me, someone who sees a niche in a market where there's an incumbent player that really does a terrible job for its customers, and they set out to do better. And an incubator is maybe somewhere in the middle of that, but that's, again, definition everybody can make for themselves.
Florian, how about you? I mean, you've been directly in the land of darkness at Rocket Internet, then went to the light to Project A.
Wait and see. Just to make sure this is irony, correct?
Yeah.
Just to make sure. Some people never get it.
I mean, it's a rather academic discussion, which I like personally, but I think for ourselves we define the difference between incubator, or if we incubate a company, that's something that we would co-found, in the sense like found it with some people together and then try to make it as big as possible, whereas acceleration we rather see as a process where there's a company already, there's a team already, there's an idea already, there might be first revenues or something to start with, and that company needs some acceleration. I mean, that's the definition that we make, but I think that's, I think both business models are perfectly fine. I mean, at Rocket, we used to do mostly incubation. I mean, that's the primary focus. At Project A, we're a lot more open to acceleration, but that's also a question of resources, right? I mean, the more resources you have, the more you'll do incubation. And I think it's also a little bit a question of positioning. But we basically decided if you want to do more innovative stuff too, you have to open up yourself to people that are more innovative than yourself, right? Which is definitely the case with us. So we're looking for people who are more innovative. Then you have to do acceleration because we're simply not creative enough on the conceptual level ourselves to come up with all of these great ideas. So that's why we basically said we want to do both incubation and acceleration. And I think that fits together because, I mean, you have like competence, a competence-based team that can support either one.
Did you want to say something?
No.
Okay.
Maybe yes. I think it's not about like being not creative enough or be creative enough. I think it's something about risk, yeah, and what the view on risk is. It's just less risk to execute something that already works somewhere else or works in a given market. And for a lot of us folks, it makes just a lot of sense to focus on the stuff first which can be successful without having too much risk. And I think with that, we build a base for more innovative companies. So I think we will see, and this is the same for Team Europe, we will see more and more of us to get into more and more innovative fields and also take more risks.
But do I understand this correctly, that a lack of experience is the best reason for doing nothing innovative?
Not only a lack of experience, but also like the abundance of risk-free opportunities. Yeah, so we take those first. And I think something that's very innovative is like what Alex says, what Rocket is doing. And Rocket is the oldest player in this market and also the market leader, right? And they're the oldest player, and they're just globalizing. And I think this is something like very innovative, right? That like based here in Germany, it's super innovative that we build global companies. And this is also that we started to do with Team Europe basically since last year, and also some others are doing. So, and I think this is super innovative. We're better than the US folks, although they are ahead in the whole experience and learning curve on the internet. So they have a lot of advantages, but still, we are those people bringing this experience and innovation globally. So I think it's, to answer your question again, I think it's the availability of risk-free opportunities. It would be kind of economically not super smart to avoid those. But having said that, again, like, the innovation and the really true innovative startups are the crown, and I'm sure this will happen. We will start to see more and more innovative things.
Okay, now that you addressed this big pink elephant that's probably walking around the room here, innovation versus copycats, the big discussion. Alex, you're probably the guy that is confronted with this thing the most, like this criticism of Germany's policy of copying successfully business models from abroad. What do you answer these people?
So I tend to refer to the interview you gave last week. So you frame it quite nicely. You say innovation is not only about the idea, right? There's much more than that. And we see that we start building companies at a time lag of maybe 6 weeks after the original model shows traction. And there's so much on the way that you have to improve. And sometimes the original model shifts the business model as well. So from our point of view, ideas are very important. But sometimes it's firstly narrowed down too much on the design of the homepage. Right? If you see the discussion of Bamrang and Fab, right? In Germany, like 5 from Casacanda or Monokey, whatever, Bamrang all do the same. Just one which maybe was a slightly bit close to the same layout, and that's the copycat. The others are innovative. So I think it's a bit too easy to say that's a copycat. This is not. Secondly, apart from the fact that basic execution blah blah is very important, we do also some models which are either so generic. For example, e-commerce, selling shoes online, right? So if somebody says it's a copycat of Zappos, okay, you could somehow argue that, but you can also say it's a very generic way of selling shoes online. Or take Möbel24, which is selling furniture online. I wouldn't even know which should have been the model we copied. Yeah? So that's
World Stores. Huh? World Store is the model.
Yeah, but for example, my first successful company was my first I don't know. And we are friends, but you have always to capitalize on bashing us.
And I actually changed my mind, guys. Honestly, to all these, what I said initially. So I'm from my own personal background. I'm just more interested in the innovative stuff and looking at Passion Capital. We did 20 seed investments, all in pure innovative companies based out of Europe. And I think that is what we have decided to do. But I think what you guys do here is outstanding for the whole ecosystem, because by taking out the product risk with doing copycats, you can accelerate scale much faster. That means you educate tons of people. I mean, here in Berlin Mitte, you have, I don't know, 5,000-10,000 people working in digital, and probably 5 to 10% of those guys will eventually end up working in what I call a more innovative startup. And that is good, because let's keep in mind, the internet is not invented by the Americans. It was the European. Swiss. It's actually British, yeah? British.
No, it was really European, because of Swiss it was CERN, and it was like international scientists working together. So, but one more point, like just, I kind of made it, but like to underscore it, I think like what is innovative here is the model of a company builder itself. Yeah? It's something that did not exist 10 years ago, did not exist 15 years ago. And I think it's a great model and a very, very big idea. Yeah, I think things of whatever, like I tend to compare it to McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, Goldman Sachs, stuff like that. Those have been business models which have been childs of their time. And they evolved, I don't know, 100 years ago, something like that. And today the time is ready for a model like a company builder. And this is something, it's a very innovative model, yeah, to focus on this execution business and streamline some of the processes and stuff like that. And again, it's not, back to Alex's point, it's not copycats, it's execution businesses. You said again, copycats. Yes. It's execution business. No. Also, like, for example, my first successful company, Spreadshirt, yeah? I launched the site, the first version of the site. I was very excited. Yeah, this is what I'm doing, yeah? And my background was I was a consultant for a textile printing company, small company. And this is how I got the idea, yeah? And the first thing that happened when it was live, like the very first basic version, a friend of mine told me, "Oh, you're doing Cafe Press." You know Cafe Press? So, yeah, here, a website in the US, they're doing more or less exactly the same. And I was like, wow, cool. And this encouraged me because I had a role model. The first terms of service have been like copying Amazon in German and copy them. So this encouraged me and made my life easier. But the idea itself was not a copycat. Yeah? And so ideas evolve at the same time. As Alex said, it's a no-brainer to start a furniture shop online, kind of. you would be stupid not looking at the existing furniture shops doing it, right?
But Alex, again, let's focus a bit. I mean, you're obviously right in saying that, just two more questions and you're done. You're obviously right in saying that shoes or furniture, as Ollie is saying it, is a pretty broad topic, but I mean, copying such stuff as Pinterest directly by Pinspy, which looks one by one the same, isn't this slightly different?
I hope it did. So it's funny hearing these questions from somebody who works for the European TechCrunch and does the web. Of course, there's some models which are closer to the original, some are less. I think if you look at Dropgift and Pinspire, they're probably closer to the originals, but not necessarily are the better models, right? So we try to be ignorant from where the idea comes from. We put a lot of basically praise to those who get the ideas. We often also approach them and ask to do it together. If they decide not to, if we still like the idea, we still do it. And yeah.
I think you also have to differentiate. I mean, if you just look at it from an IP legal standpoint, I mean, copying design one by one, you could argue that's actually stealing a design, right? But I mean, for a very good reason, it's very hard in Europe to actually get some kind of legal protection for the idea, right? Because I mean, in the end, if you look at it economically or like from a society standpoint, what's best? I mean, it's actually best for the consumer and for society if a lot of people are doing exactly the same thing and are competing for a certain model. So I think sometimes, especially our American friends, I'm wondering why they're arguing this way, in the sense that, you know, somebody is copying, selling shoes online. I mean, if you reverse the logic, that would basically mean that somebody that has this idea first has some kind of legal protection or monopoly for some time. And I think just from a societal standpoint, or economic standpoint, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, I mean, for a very good reason, a patent or some kind of protection is only granted if you have a certain height of innovation. And selling shoes online, I think, is a very good example where this height of innovation is definitely not given, right? And I mean, there's tens of other, if you look at how the mobile providers are battling themselves for patent protections that somebody else has, you see to what kind of thing too many protection rights can lead, right? And I think a lot of people often neglect this fact that we have a legal system that protects innovation in a certain way, and if ideas are not patentable or protectable in whatever sort, there's a very good reason for that. So.
Okay, then let's find a final sentence. We may write to Christian Reber from the anti-copycat revolution. Why does it make sense to incubate? I mean, okay, Alex now said this, it's ironically to do a to-do list and write about anti-copycats, the core. And by the way, chapeau for the good job. One sentence that sums up the stuff you said about incubating companies. What would be one line saying, okay, incubation makes sense because of? Each of you one line maybe. Lukas.
Takes out the product risk and makes money.
Reduces the waste of resources that would otherwise go into false innovation.
My favorite answer to any question is, it depends. And I think this is very much the case.
I would say, I wouldn't say risk-free models, I would say risk-poor models, and not only because of the idea, proven model, but also because of team financing. Right, I would extend it a bit.
Creates a lot of value. Okay. It's, I mean, somewhere between art and business. If you want to be very innovative, be an artist.
How many jobs did you guys create, each of you? Rocket, how many jobs did Rocket create?
Historically, including the...
Probably minus because we fire so many people.
I won't say that's not true, but I would say... I would say at least since Christmas, 2,500, and accumulated probably like 15,000.
50 or 15?
15.
Okay, that's quite a bunch. How about you, Stefan?
It's very much depending on whether I include my own daily deal cloning activities all over the planet. So with this, it's probably a couple of thousand as well. In China alone, 5,000. Without, I can give you the number of, we did 20 deals in the past 12 months, and this led to 208 new jobs.
Okay. Phil, I'm interested in your perspective. Seedcamp seems to be pretty international with Seedcamps in Germany, Great Britain, also in Eastern Europe. What is your perspective on the ecosystem as a whole? Like, does Germany stand out in a way, or how do you see Europe as a whole?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it stands out per se, because there are a lot of things that develop in a similar vein across the continent, and the further west you go, the stronger these signals are. So obviously you go Eastern Europe, then you come to Germany, and then England is even a bit further in most regards, and obviously. Same thing in the US, you come to the East Coast, it's a bit less developed in terms of the company creation process than the West Coast. But Seedcamp, the idea and the goal of Seedcamp was in the first place to create a bridge between the different places. And we're very happy with how successful we've been doing that since 2007. And we had, I think, 27 different countries from where companies applied. In our portfolio, we have companies from over 30 countries.
But what's special? I mean, I talked to you at NOAA conference 2 years ago, and you said, Joe, in Eastern Europe, wow, that's fucking different. They're much more innovative. These guys are hungry. Germany is just slow and boring.
I don't think innovative is the word I used, and if I did, I will take that back. They are much more hungry, though. So founding teams from countries that don't have anything in terms of an entrepreneurial ecosystem, a tech ecosystem, they will just simply work much, much, much harder than anyone. Not anyone, but most of the people here. So when they make the trek from, I don't know, from Kiev, or they make the trek from Estonia, which is one of the locations we've seen some great entrepreneurs, to London, that's a much bigger difference for them than somebody who's coming from Berlin or from Paris. So I think they just have a much higher inclination. They have more to win and much less to lose than somebody who went, to a good university, comes from a home with parents who can afford 2 cars and a big house, as is quite normal in Germany. So I think that hunger is something that is just so outstanding. And that's why we see at least a third, if not more, of our companies coming from Eastern Europe. And a lot of the companies we see anywhere coming from immigrant families and kind of first or second generation immigrants in their respective countries.
Stefan, you're not part of the Berlin mafia. You sit in London. You're pretty international. What is your view on this? I saw you nodding when Phil said that they are more hungry.
It just comes, they live in different societies, and they are just more hungry. And you can see it, they're just working longer and more. And furthermore, so I'm a big supporter of Seedcamp and have been since inception. I think it's awesome because it brings together the values of Europe. Once again, the internet is invented in Europe. We are in Germany Exportweltmeister. That means in all other industries we are able to deliver world-class companies. And I think now this whole, however you call this, is only the first step, but we should fundamentally be able to deliver kick-ass companies out of Europe. Taking my best example is you take the techies from the East, you take the BizDev developers from Britain, you take some designers from Italy and France, you do processing execution in Germany, and the lucky crown of being the CEO goes to my friends the Swedes, because they have delivered the best results. And with this mindset, come on, we should be able to create companies who end up on the buy side and not on the sell side. Because we are able to do this in every other industry, not in the
we've got one extra step to make, I think, and that makes it a bit more difficult. We still need to create the companies that buy the other companies. We don't have the big acquirers like Google, Apple, Facebook, etc. in Europe yet. So that's maybe where some of the huge companies that you guys create come in.
Well, I think one major thing why that's the case is not because we're building worse companies, but I think a lot of the reason has to do with access to capital. When you see in the US, you see a lot of companies that would get a 10 million post valuation here that raise 150 million, $40 million, like $40 million on a 150 million post valuation in the US, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, when you see the company, you think, well, that company is not stable, right? And when you see a 150 million company in Germany, that's, that company is like, up and running perfectly, processes are all fine. And in the US, it's like closely after seed stage. And I think to be that smart and that good to overcompensate this great access to capital, that's a strategic disadvantage. And I think the only company, and that's also why I like this incubation thing, because incubation, if you see the Rocket example, I mean, Rocket is probably the only one right now, and you are getting closer. I mean, Team Europe has also been getting a lot better in terms of capital acquisition. And I think that also shows the potential of the model, not only in terms of execution, but also in terms of capital raising. Because this is a big strategic disadvantage, right? I mean, if you have just less capital, substantially.
So I want to second that. I mean, like, capital is really underestimated as success factor. And the good capitalization of a company makes for a self-fulfilling prophecy. And European investors just don't get it.
I strongly disagree.
And just and Rocket Internet, this is kudos to Rocket Internet. Rocket Internet showed the way. And the big part of Rocket Internet's success is just how much capital they're able to raise, and that they got this mechanics kind of, and create self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, Oliver Samper just got it. It doesn't matter in the first year of CityDeal if I spend 30 million or 40 million, because there's so much value I create. This 10 extra million, it just don't make a difference. Yeah, and now I'm curious.
So according to Chinevec, Rocket Internet raised 300 million euro in the first 3 months, and according to my internal sources, they have already agreed a 200 million round of someone I won't mention here.
Or tell me afterwards.
No. That makes 500 million within the first 5 months of the year. Tell me one US company who was able to get 500 million from a private market. That's my first remark.
Acquire capital.
Andreessen Horowitz.
Secondly, there's a reason why I left Germany in 2000, because after having sold Ricardo, which was on Neuer Markt, to QXL, we at that time wondered, we made double the revenue and our market cap was half. So that was the logic step for me to check out the whole Anglo-Saxon ecosystem. And frankly, yes, you do get slightly, maybe 40% better valuations in the US, but in London, and this is 1.5 hours ago, you have a ton of great investors who actually get it, and these are not only the big names. I actually, when I spoke with Lucas in 2002, I told him stop fundraising here in Germany, go to London, and he closed with XL.
No. I followed your advice, and I went to the US. Yeah, we went to the US, and one major reason to get access to capital there. And we've been seen as a company active in the US, and all of a sudden we had access to the US guys at least talked with us, and then we ended up with Excel, which is a big mistake, but this is a different story. One of my favorites.
So of course the US have more capital, they have all this stuff, but in the past 10 years this has changed. We have tons of guys who do get the seed stage, who get the early series A. The tricky part in Europe is actually in between A and B, but that's the tricky part in the US as well. I would not blame this at all, actually. Because if you are a kick-ass entrepreneur, you are able to find good money in Europe.
don't agree.
I disagree and I agree. I agree that you guys, you just need to be in London much more. When I moved to London 2 years ago, I thought, oh shit, I'm going to work in this awesome company, but it's going to be in London. Maybe I can just convince them to come to Berlin. Within a week, I was cured of that. London has an ecosystem that's much older, it's much more complete, and you don't have to move there, you don't have to be there, you just have to go there every now and then and build some bridges, get to know these people. You don't have to wait for the London investors or the US investors to come here. Go and meet them there. Go to some events, like it's really not hard. You can take a 1 hour flight to Munich or a 1 hour flight to London, and really you should do it more.
Okay, what do you disagree?
So I disagree that all the European investors are as good as the US investors. We just went on the US tour in February, and two or three of the teams who were the investors here just shook them off as way too risky and not possible at all to finance. Within 2 weeks, they got 3 term sheets on the table.
I mean, like, there are 2 investors, like there are 2 funds that have like 500 million funds that can write like 5 to 10 million checks in Europe. Only 2 that come to my mind, maybe 3. It's Index, it's Excel, DST, and maybe Belderton. DST is, yeah, but DST is very late stage, yeah. So they don't do 5 to 10 million rounds. And for example, with us, Team Europe, it happens that almost every company that we build already Index has something already in the portfolio. If we build Click Click Club, they have Stylus Click. We build Delivery Hero, they have Just Eat. We have a sponsor pay, they have trial pay, yeah, on and on. So one is already crossed out. Yeah? So I have 3 potential VCs. One I can kind of compete with. Excel is a different story. And then we end up maybe with Belderton maybe or something like that. Yeah. But they also do some kind of later stage. It's really funny. And you know, like whoever talks to investors, you know for which funny reasons they something decline you, yeah? And you don't even pass the filters. So it's just like. The investor universe needs to be very large for you. It's not only hard work. It's hard to work hard on 3 people. And of course it's possible. And we did it, and Rocket did it, yeah. And they unlocked Kinnevik somehow. And they showed what is possible. Yeah? So the development goes into the right direction. And yes, it's possible, but it's very tough. And it's one of the shortcomings of our ecosystem. But the good news is, this poor VCs, yeah. Poor means like untalented, they're about to die out, and the next generation is coming. Did I already mention public capital?
Lucas, otherwise, I mean, help the people that did not yet found a company understand why is it so important to have so much money. You said money capitalization is quite an important part of founding a company successfully, especially with the big competitors. Why?
That kind of energy is the lifeblood of your company. So money is like energy. You see this as an equivalent, yeah? So with money, like once you have, especially, that's kind of it. You can outspend your competitor, you have more security, you waste less time on like this investor shows. So money is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If a business that makes sense is well capitalized, and decently executed, you will be successful.
And I mean, there are also
especially when you grow a company to a certain stage. I mean, if you see a company like Zalando, you need so many systems and tools and operations, and if you had not created it with a lot of capital in the first place, it's much harder to meet the growth requirements on the next stage. So if you have capital right from the beginning, you can design a company completely different. That's BI, logistics, you know.
Plus money is the margin of error. Yeah? The more money you have, the more errors you're allowed to make. And some errors are not critical. I'll give one example again, Rocket. Yeah? They did City Deal. They built it with a lot of money. They built a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then they do it, and here now I'm guessing, I don't know too much about it. Yeah, but they did Vimdu. Yeah? And they did a horrible start because they just kind of wasted money. Imagine Wimdu without 30 million, but only 5 million. The 5 million would have been wasted, the company would have been bust, because if nobody would give them follow-on financing. Yeah? And since they already had like 20 or 30 or whatever the number is, yeah, nobody cares. And when they have shareholders with strong capitalization, nobody cares. I mean, like, they still care, but the company survives, and it's now a good company on track.
Surely it's easy with a lot of money, but also having too much money leads you sometimes into wrong directions. I think it's not always good for quality if you have too much money.
Just don't scale before you know what you scale. Yes.
To
Too much money costs creativity. You need a lot of money in the executional phase, when it's all about rolling out and so on. Then you need a lot of money. These days, to start a company, there's so much data out there, open APIs. You can't just literally, when I started a server, the cost was 30,000 Deutschmark. Today, you pay 10p per CPU in the cloud. I mean, that is just, you can't compare it. And to start a company, you don't need more than 50 to 100k. Once you're able to show traction, and you are a good team, backable guys, then the sky's the limit.
I mean, it's also possible to start a business without money. I mean, Spreadshirt is an example. It was financed basically by the customers. They paid for a T-shirt immediately, and I paid my supplier end of the month plus 10 days. That's it. So it's always possible, and always will be possible. There always will be opportunities that you can execute without financing. Yes, but there are fewer, and we also want to build the opportunities that go with financing. Yeah, we want to be better than the US folks or whatever.
Okay, I mean, we spoke about money in the beginning. What about in the end? I mean, you mentioned it, and I can remember Klaus Hommel said it when we met with Philipp Rüssler, our guy from the government. He said there is no company.
Klaus, I'm so disappointed.
The guys from the government without even paying taxes here.
Sorry, Klaus. Didn't mean to fuck you. Anyway, what he said was. There is actually no player, or let's say a bunch of players, where we can sell companies to. I mean, take Zalando for instance. Süddeutsche Zeitung called me and said, hey, are these guys going public or will they be sold? I said, well, who's going to buy them? Think about it. And I came out with the result that it's hard to sell a big company until it reaches a certain level. What do you guys think of this?
If you can avoid selling companies, if you can avoid take investors and avoid selling companies, that's the best advice. Yeah? And I, for example, one part of my mistakes, I have to sell Spreadshirt now. That sucks. I don't really want to sell it. Yeah, and I've built it with zero money, and I've built it with zero money to a few hundred people. If I would have known better, and I mean, I had also other advantages, whatever, but now I have to sell it, because I have investors who look for returns, I have specific contracts, and I can take dividends without approval, and the interests are misaligned. It would be just great to keep this great company. It's such a cool company, yeah? It will grow for the next 10, 20 years. This Spreadshirt business will be around for 30 years. And now I will get at some point a one-off check instead of like taking dividends for years and years and years. It would be much cooler. So,
I mean, you say on the one hand it's cool to have a lot of money and it's necessary, on the other hand you cry about Excel and have to sell it.
I mean, if you have an unsustainable business, I don't know, you sell whatever, funny ringtones and funny subscription models, and sell as fast as you can. But if you have a sustainable business model, Immobilien Scout, yeah, those types of businesses, like an Auto Scout, Immobilien Scout, or whatever, like an Airbnb or Delivery Hero or whatever, then if you can,
Ummelkiste.
You can also keep it up for great. Yeah, it's a great business. It will pay dividends. This was one part of the answer, but there's also another part, and I don't know who wants to take it.
Exactly.
The question was whether we have exit channels here in Europe, and what can we do about it?
I don't think we need to kid ourselves that we have too much choice in terms of where we can exit to at any level of building a business. So it's not, is it too hard to sell a big company? I mean, for you guys, right, you're entrepreneurs, it's hard to sell anything. Is it a stake of your business to sell that to a VC at a good price? But then I think if you have a business that won't grow anymore, it's just very hard to find a tech-focused acquirer in Europe at all.
At some point, Zalando will be a buyer.
Will they, Alex?
Look, as you know, incubators are involved in building companies, not in running them long term. So it's, I guess, to ask Zalando.
What I'm interested in is, I mean, especially to you, Alex. First of all, I really applause for opening it. That sounds really great. Founding one, I mean this seriously. Founding one company a week and creating 40,000.
15,000 jobs, yeah.
That's really incredible. I really pull my hair, and seriously. But the question I have is, how do you guys decide which model to clone or to build up anyway? I mean, if we say, okay, that it's hard to sell a company in Europe, and it's also hard to get finance, how do you decide which company to build?
First, we have to like a model, right? If we like a business model, we discuss it internally, and then we decide to start without knowing in the first moment in which countries to go. There's always, like if it's a very new business model, we go to Germany. If it's a business model which is, for example, selling electronics, like we now do in Southeast Asia, we would not do that in Germany. So we do more like which countries are not yet well developed in selling e-commerce, like electronics e-commerce.
How about you, Lucas? What do you sell pizza?
So pizza was from Markus Fuhrmann's portfolio. He built a company like that in Austria, and then we looked with Point Nine Capital if we wanted to invest in this Austrian company, and we couldn't because it was owned by a Swedish company, so it wouldn't have made sense to invest in a subsidiary. But then we realized it might be an opportunity for Germany, because we realized how weak the existing competitors are. So we started it for Germany, and then half a year later we realized, wow, this is a bigger opportunity than we even thought. And we started a global company together with Niklas. And the thing is, like, in hindsight, it looks so easy because we firmly believe this is a multi-billion euro opportunity delivery here. And in hindsight, it looks so easy. Back then, it wasn't so easy. And I also passed on Groupon on the business model because it didn't look so easy. We underestimated transfer friends. So in hindsight, very easy to know. But when you take the decision, you don't know it. So it has to be good enough. You don't know who the winners really are. And the interesting learning is here: do your homework and analyze. So don't do too little, but also don't do too much. If you overanalyze, we end up doing nothing because there will be so many obstacles that you run into. So my experience is overanalyzing is also very bad. And we very often say with the companies like whatever, Portal or some others, like, oh, would we have known how tough this is, we never would have started it. So the truth is somewhere in the middle. Do your homework, but don't overanalyze.
But what is also very helpful is if you decide, if you like a model, that you automatically switch into the mode that you will do it and start running, you can always pull the plug. So we have at least 4 times not launched the company one day before we should have launched, because we said, okay, we could launch, but is it really that nice? No, it is not.
So here we have a different philosophy, because once we do it, we never pull the plug. So this is also because you sometimes also put the plug later, right?
You should do it from time to time.
Maybe we should do it from time to time, and sometimes it's inefficient not to do it, and we waste kind of resources. But on the other hand, we gain a lot, and this is kind of like, this is then probably philosophy.
I think you should not ride that horses too long, right? And that's important thing that you transfer the good people or all the people to other businesses, then it's fine.
You will not try to turn around something 5 times, but one or twice. But the guiding question is always for us, when we look at the model, is like, what prevents us to go to the notary tomorrow and start the company? This is the guiding question. This is the critical path.
Why don't you just change your view and instead of analyzing models, start solving problems? And by that, but actually before, honestly, I think it is incredibly valuable what all the incubators do here, especially for Berlin. So I'm much more talking about the next phase. Keep in mind, the problem Mark Zuckerberg had when he started 2004 Facebook, he was pretty much an average-looking dude, interested in some Harvard girl. So he created his Am I Hot or Not? And out of this, he created within 8 years a $100 billion company. By solving one problem, how do I get known to this beautiful girl? And so we have tons of problems out there. Everyone, personal problems, which we experience. We have all the data out there. We have unbelievable great early stage investors. I mean, look at what Klaus invested or what Nenad invested. We have guys here in Europe who get it. So please just start solving the problem.
Maybe 2 last questions before we give the chance to the audience to ask questions. Florian, it's now your second company builder. What would you say is the toughest part in building companies?
I think one tough part is deciding when it's the right time to scale, right? I mean, if you look at Rocket, but that's the same thing, also Project A or Team Europe, I think in order to scale a company, also internationally, you need to have a very good blueprint to make things run smoothly, also in international markets, not to waste too much money. And I think if you do that too early, you you just waste an awful lot of money. And without going into too much detail, also in our time at Rocket and my time at Rocket, that has happened just as a matter of fact quite often. And I think you always are challenged to go to a country or to different countries too early. And if you look at Zalando, I mean, Zalando was in Germany, I think, 1.5 years before going international. And if you have a complex model like e-commerce, that's probably not a bad idea, right? I mean, the blueprint doesn't necessarily have to come from Germany; it can also come from a different country. But I think that's if you have a model where you know the model in principle works, it's really down to execution, and then finding out when you can roll it out. I think that's the toughest problem for a company builder in the copycat space.
What is the difference, Dave, by the way? I mean, you did a lot of company building with Rocket Internet. With Project A so far, it seems that you're more investing, I would say, in rather semi-interesting stuff. Maybe you prove me wrong in the end. What is the difference if I invest into a company in comparison to if I build up a company?
I mean, I think the main difference is basically the starting point, right? I mean, once you're in an operational mode, it doesn't make a difference. There's also a thing that I often think, because often people say at Rocket Internet there's no real founders, whatever, because somebody else founded the company. Yeah, that might be the case in the very beginning, but if you're running a company for half a year plus, it doesn't really matter. I mean, they're either good entrepreneurs or good guys running it, or bad guys running it. It doesn't really matter who actually did like the initial spark. I mean, that's at least my notion. And so I think it doesn't really matter whether you found a company yourself or somebody else founded. What you often see though is that people who founded their companies themselves are probably more emotionally attached to what they do, right? And I mean, that's also why we do this, because we believe long term this is going to produce better companies. However, that's just a gut feeling, right? I mean, I've been at university for a couple of years. I wouldn't just say incubators built, I mean, if you think this through, this would basically mean incubators built worse companies because they do it with somebody that didn't come up with the idea or whatever. But I say, basically, there's no empirical proof whether that's actually the case. So I wouldn't go that far, but we at least work under the hypothesis that this might be the case.
Alex, is it true, by the way, that founders at Rocket Internet are more of hired managers than entrepreneurs?
What would the exact difference be?
And as Florian said, founding a company on its own, having the idea, being passionate about it, in comparison to, you're hired and Oliver tells you what to do.
I mean, right now we have like 100 companies running at the same time, so it would be pretty hard even for somebody like Oliver telling everybody what exactly to do. So those guys, they maybe don't take up 100% of the risk, right? So they don't have to get money from their grandmother or take up a bank loan, so they can already fit in a company with funding. But what they do ultimately is the same. They build companies, and maybe they join before we agreed with them on what model they will work. Maybe they joined a month later, but ultimately it's not a sprint. It's at least 4-year marathon, and after 2, 3, 4 years, you will see they do a good job, and then it's up to, if you call it founder, co-founder, or managing director, whatever. I think that's not too much of a difference.
I guess there are dozens of questions, but maybe now the audience has the chance to ask questions. We have microphones here, over there.
Audience is Marguerite. Nice.
Marguerite of Venture Village. Each of you is the figurehead of a prominent and in some cases, most cases, a controversial institution. Can each of you address the reputation of your company and also how the others on stage have helped to shape this reputation?
Right to left,
The others include Joanne?
Yes.
Lucas?
Very complex question.
It's a good question, but
How did Rocket shape Project A reputation?
Did they?
Well, I guess, yeah. Yeah, I mean, most of us have been at Rocket before, so I guess a lot of the reputation that we have or might not have also is derived from the time at Rocket. I mean, that's a matter of fact. I think to really judge what we're doing will probably take like 12 to 18 more months, right? Also for ourselves, whether to say, okay, whether this what the real difference will be. Because I mean, especially if you're in the acceleration business, not so much in the incubation, it really depends on what choices you make in terms of the investors and the entrepreneurs you support. And I think, yeah, we've done some investments. You'll see more in the near future. And I think in 12 to 18 months, we'll basically see how the whole thing evolves, right? I mean, it's still very much in flux. But right now, our reputation, sure. I mean, we've all been at Rocket, so some of that reputation comes from Rocket.
Actually, not all of the panel has been at Rocket, just to be clear.
Just me.
Yeah. When you did an internship last year.
Yeah, but Alex, I think image and reputation is quite an issue for you guys, isn't it?
So I think we don't have the best image. So I think we have to paint a more positive picture. It creates questions in two moments: when you try to hire people and if you try to raise money. Luckily, in all the other things, you're pretty independent. If you build enough companies, you don't need networks, and you just have to build. That's a good thing about it. Sure. And good images, if you I think probably Team Europe has the most sympathetic or whatever like nice, fun image. Nine Capital is invested in West Wing, which is probably your second best performing company in your portfolio, and we're doing it kind of.
Oh no.
Okay. Whatever.
I mean, but it's a very good one. But I think it. I mean, like two observations. One thing, image sometimes is overrated, and how it's created. Yeah. So Rocket has the disadvantage of being the market leader. Rocket has the disadvantage of being very tough, and they have this disadvantage. I mean, because some people don't even look at it. And talent is very important. It's a very important ingredient. Yeah. So like the short-term benefits that they have, and maybe be a bit tougher on some decisions, they pay for them. Yeah. But it's still super successful, and to be admired and shape the ecosystem. And I mean, like if you're the market leader, then you always get bashed. Yeah. And this is also maybe a bit also of a German thing, like why people are so bashed. Then it's sometimes overrated because of the people who cry the loudest are not the most relevant people. When you look at all these comments on the blogs, yeah, I mean it's a joke. Those are the most incompetent people and who have no clue and give like bullshit comments. And sometimes and very often, yeah, it's even like some individuals who we sometimes know of, and they're pissed, or competitors, yeah. So we have this at Lieferheld, yeah, Lieferheld, all these bullshit comments, and we know who they're from, yeah. So those are like from competitors. So this is also to be taken into account. Yeah, but for us at Team Europe, it's very simple. We try to think long term, because if we love this business, I told in my entry speech, I think what we have as a product is entrepreneurship. It's one of the best products in the world. I want to continue to do this for the next 15 years or 20 years, as long as my health will enable me, hopefully more than 20 years, right? And so it's a long-term game. Yeah? It's not a one. It's not a. Yeah, and this is kind of the vision. When you have this perspective, this long-term perspective, then you act differently. And I've been also lucky when I've been a student and started my first company. I once did it for the wrong reasons, so I was not. So I was a bit of unethical in my motivation. Yeah, there was some how you call it, some revenge motive in it. Yeah, and it created a very funny dynamic, which was very bad. And so I screwed it basically up. And I was lucky enough to make this learning very early in my career, and I think it was very helpful.
As only a short time is left, Philip has a question.
Number 8 does work. I have one question. I think every third in here is a founder, and you're all rock stars. Everybody knows you by name. Everybody reads when you blog and when you tweet. But who's the best of you? Where should we go? What do we get, and what do you give?
I think. Okay. Wrong question. When you ask who's the best, I think it's a wrong question. Because it doesn't matter who's the best. It matters if you're good enough.
But who's the best for founders? Where should they go? Why should they come to you guys?
There's a clear answer. Ask other founders. I think everything what comes from us is all PR schmarrn and blah blah. Just go to Florian from einem, or go to Henrik from Readmill, or go to Thor from Loopcam here in the Berlin scene and ask their opinion, because there you get it unfiltered.
Don't ask only Stefan's portfolio companies.
salesperson.
And also, I think that the answer is here. It's not a popular answer, but here the answer is really it depends. Yeah, and some people fit to a specific culture and work excellent in a specific culture. And it's just like chemistry. Yeah, so for some people, one group will be better, for others one. And sometimes I also send people to Rocket. No kidding, yeah? Because if I think, I mean, they do a lot of great stuff and everybody knows it. So yeah, they have more capital. We maybe whatever like so. And
actually, it's funny. Sometimes we have people who go on a little tour. First they, I don't know. So they first speak to Florian, then to Luca, then to us. So it's quite common that people shop around. Ultimately, it's a function of many different things, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, obviously the question is who fits into your style of working?
It's the same. You as founder, you should choose your investors because actually, you can, if you marry, there's a way for divorcing. You know? It's bloody tough with investors. It's really, it's way more tricky to get rid of investors instead of getting rid of your wife. and the amount you're investing in finding the right wife is negatively correlated if you compare this with the importance of the investor. So you should do your homework.
yeah, and also like the difference between co-founders and investors. In Team Europe's case, we look for co-founders. Our investment capacity we do with Point 9 Capital, and they're also like kind of self-dependent. So
Kind of.
yeah, so the first decision is: are you a founder on your own, or are you a co-founder with a company-building company? This is kind of the first decision.
What competencies you have yourself, that's probably also something that's relevant. But, I mean, there's no problem to talk. I mean, there's not too many players. I mean, that's also what we forget. Sure, these are competitors here in some sense, but I mean, compared to the US, this is, you know, like really, really small ecosystem. So I think it's quite transparent to see what the strengths are of everybody, and then make your own mind.
This is the beauty of our industry, that everybody can be successful. Yes, so like sometimes we are direct competitors in the portfolio, but if you look at the portfolios, it's not very often that we really compete directly.
If you want to work on the Philippines, you have to come to us.
Okay, yes, we're already over time. Maybe one last question. Anyone? Okay, that's young gentleman.
Hello. I'm currently in an accelerator program called Startup Chile, which is funded by the Chilean government. And I was wondering if you could share your opinion on the difference between a government-backed incubator or a private one, and if investors view those differently, there is a bias towards companies that came out of a private one versus the government.
Didn't know there are government.
Anyone? Okay, you got them on the wrong topic.
I know a little bit about Startup Chile. I think what they do is relatively independent of the government, or at least the picture that I have of it looks that way. We, as HECAM, we don't have any government money in our fund because we want to have, so all of our investors are either venture or angel investors. We're very active in the tech scene. And in many cases are also the follower investors for us. So that was very important for us. And we made the decision not to have any government money because we didn't have any input that would have to skew us in one or the other way. So that's the only thing I can say. But when you don't see that working out in such an accelerator program, then that's good. And if you do, that's probably not so good.
I would say it doesn't really matter where the money comes from. It really depends on the reputation of the specific program, right? I mean, it always depends on the 2-3 people running it. And when there's cool people running it, I have never heard about that initiative. But I mean, if they do a good job, I mean, look at HTGF in Germany. It's not a incubator, but you know, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, a lot of people said, oh, it's not good if you spend government money on companies in a VC type manner. And I think HTGF shows that there's very good companies that have come out of this program, so that can be very good. So I wouldn't always say that governmental money or public money is bad in entrepreneurship.
Okay, then thank you to all of you guys. A big thank you for creating jobs, for being here, for being nice, for being funny. And yes, thank you to you all. And I think next is Elaine again moderating.